Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Depending on where you're from, I would like to wish you a very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Now, as the title suggests, the title of this webinar suggests, we'll cover the fundamentals of SIEM and how you can perform a real-time analysis of alerts from across your network. Before we start, let me take a few moments to introduce myself. My name is Ram, and I'm a cybersecurity specialist in ManageEngine's IT security and SIEM solutions team. I've been with ManageEngine for close to 6.5 years now, and in my role, I get to learn about the latest attack methods hackers are using to compromise sensitive data. I get to speak to people like you and understand the latest technologies companies use to defend themselves as well. This helps me inform product roadmap decisions for Log 360, which is a comprehensive SIEM solution. Oh, and by the way, I'm also very interested in ethical hacking. So that is something that I do in my free time. Okay, so now I would like to make sure that you can all hear me loud and clear and that my screen is also visible. So if everything is fine, could you please confirm this to me over chat, please? We'll just take about 10 seconds for this. Again, I'm looking for confirmations that you can hear me and also see the slides. This webinar is streaming live on Zoom and also on LinkedIn Live. So wherever you are viewing this from, please use the chat feature and confirm that everything is fine and we can get started. And just as I say that, I seem to have got a few confirmations from people. Thank you so much, Alvin, Kishore, Richard, Mark, Dinesh Kumar. Thank you all so very much for those confirmations. Now, as we embark on this journey for the next 45 minutes or so, let's think about why this topic is important. It is going to be critical for businesses to have an effective and efficient SIEM solution in order to protect against all the sophisticated threats that are out there in the real world. Attackers are using new and sophisticated tactics, and they also attempt to avoid detection by traditional security tools. For example, in the last couple of years, fileless malware and living off the land attacks have become extremely common. Oh, and you know what? It's not just about fileless malware and living off the land attacks that we should be concerned about. Because what's a hacker's favorite season? It's phishing season. Yes, even in 2021, phishing happens to be a huge threat for organizations, and we need to be concerned about that. So anyways, the fact that organizations are adopting new technologies, such as the cloud and the advent of IoT devices as well. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, so the fact that organizations are adopting new technologies such as the cloud and the advent of smart and connected devices as well has given attackers a large surface area to work with and find vulnerabilities. This becomes even more serious during the current times when many people are working from home. So to make sure that your organization is well protected, you need a SIEM solution to bring all of this together and play defense for your company. In this session, we'll look at some of the important components of a SIEM solution. You'll soon see how your security operations center can benefit from a good SIEM solution. So having said all of that, here are the objectives for today. Here's the agenda. The first thing we'll do is get an understanding about what a SOC really is. What is the benefit of having a SOC and who are the people that are within a SOC? After that, we can discuss the technologies or capabilities of a good SIEM solution. What kind of data should we be bringing in and analyzing? How can we detect and respond to threats? Now, for this part of the session, I'll refer to ManageEngine Log 360 and go over how the solution enables you to build an effective SOC. But then again, you don't have to use ManageEngine Log 360. You can use any SIEM solution, but you just have to make sure that you have some of the capabilities of that SIEM solution right. And then finally, the last point on the agenda, key performance indicators. What are the important metrics you need to monitor to ensure that your SOC, your Security Operations Center, is working at maximum efficiency at all times? So let's start with point number 1 on the agenda. What is a Security Operations Center? Now, just take a look at this slide in front of you. This is what a SOC may look like. It's a place where all the security professionals of an organization work out of. So as you can see here, the SOC is a place that has all of these terminals and systems and large dashboards that show exactly what's happening in the network at any point of time. This scene looks like it's just out of the movies. But a SOC is more than just a place. It is also very much a function. Now, on the right is the definition of the SOC. I have seen many definitions of a SOC, but this is probably the best definition that I've come across. So I'm just going to read this out loud for you. A security operations center is a centralized function that protects the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, otherwise known as the CIA triad, of a company's valuable resources, assets, and data by making use of people, processes, and technologies in the best way possible. So yes, this is the overall definition, but let's kind of step a little bit back. Let's break it down and see what exactly we need to do. What exactly we need to have a SOC do for us to achieve all of this. Well, it turns out that there are four main things that a SOC needs to do efficiently. And it's very simple. It's right in front of you. Collect logs, ingest these logs, detect and analyze information, and then finally respond to threats. Now, an effective SIEM solution with the right capabilities can do a lot of this heavy lifting for us. So the first step, as you can see, is the collection of logs. And the logs must be collected from multiple sources in the network. After all, you can only monitor and analyze what you collect in the first place. So logs must be collected from Active Directory, network devices such as routers, switches, and firewalls, employee workstations, member servers and databases, third-party and in-house applications, file servers, and also the cloud infrastructure. Apart from all of this, you also need to collect logs from endpoint security devices and intrusion detection systems. And finally, you need the ability to collect custom logs in unique formats. For example, there could be in-house applications within an organization that generate logs in very unique formats, and your security operations center must have the ability to collect this data and make sense of this data as well. So all of this is part of log collection, and it is definitely important. It is the first step. But going beyond collecting logs, a SOC must also ingest logs. Because think about it, if you just collect the raw logs, there is no way that a security professional can browse through the entire data. It's not humanly possible. However, when the data is ingested by a SIEM solution, real-time alerts can be generated, correlation rules can be applied, anomaly detection techniques can be used, and threats can be detected. In this way, the ingestion of the logs gives you some actionable and enriched information. And then you've got step number 3, the step here on detect and analyze information. Now, in the previous step, in step number 2 with ingestion of the data, our SIEM solution has already ingested all the logs and given us some enriched information, right? Now, in this third step, we are asking important questions such as, of all the information that is ingested, of all the data that is ingested, what is important and what is not so important? We need to look at all the alerts that have been raised and figure out which of those warrants further investigation. If an alert warrants further investigation, it then becomes an incident, and investigation should be done using techniques such as forensic analysis, triaging, and analyzing the complete timeline of the incident. In this way, you're hunting for the root cause and proactively keeping your organization secure. So that is step number 3. And then finally, you've got step number 4, respond. Here, the SOC team reviews all the detected threats and performs incident response activities. So these are the 4 steps, simple enough, that a SOC needs to do. So with all of this said, you can probably see why the Security Operations Center enables you to discover events quickly, understand your security posture, and also get the bigger context of any threat. Great. Now, let's talk about what you can do to organize your Security Operations Center. Now, remember, we spoke about how you collect and ingest logs, right? That's what we did in the previous slide. Well, that's what a SIEM solution is going to do for you. It's going to collect to all of these different log sources, and it's going to collect, and on top of that, ingest all of these logs. After ingesting the logs, we need to apply techniques such as anomaly detection and correlation rules. This is going to generate some alerts for us. So that's what you see here on the slide in front of you. It's going to generate some alerts for you. These alerts will then be sent to the tier 1 SOC analyst. Now, who are these people? Who are the SOC analysts tier 1? They are your people with eyes on the glass. They will look at all the alerts they receive and will perform an initial analysis. Now, if you were to go and sit next to a tier one analyst, depending upon the size of the organization, these people may receive a humongous number of logs every minute, and it can get quite overwhelming. And in fact, I would say that a lot of people here in this webinar, probably you are also a SOC analyst. So yes, you can probably relate to this. It can get quite overwhelming. So anyways, the tier one analyst will do the initial analysis and figure out if the alert is important enough and needs to be looked at further. Usually, a tier one analyst does not spend more than 7 minutes looking at these alerts. That would be the kind of time they usually take to make a decision on whether the alert needs to be investigated further. This is a general rule of thumb, so it can go beyond this or it can be under this, but 7 minutes is usually the industry standard by which time the analyst should make a decision on whether the alert needs to be looked at further. Now, in case the alert needs to be investigated further, it can be marked as an incident, as you can see here, and then it can be sent to the tier two analyst. Now, before sending these incidents to the tier two analyst, the tier one analyst sometimes also gives their view on the priority of the incident. So they give some intelligence about which incident needs to be tackled first. The level two analysts then perform a comprehensive investigation on the incidents. They need to figure out exactly why the incident occurred. So they will do things like a forensic analysis and gather evidence. They'll find answers to questions such as what happened, when did it happen, who did it, and where did they do it? These 4 questions, the 4 vital W's, the what, when, who, and where. To do a forensic analysis, the level 2 analyst could use sophisticated tools that enable elastic search and help them drill down or zero in on a problem. Or they could write queries on a SIEM solution, and the solution will list out for them the exact information that they are looking for. Apart from using real-time data, the tier 2 analysts also rely on information gathered from past events stored in archives. So they'll put the real-time information on the one hand and the archived information on the other hand. They'll put the both together and then come to the conclusion and come to the full, get to the full context of the incident. Anyways, the objective of the tier 2 analyst here is to build an incident timeline and see the sequence of events that led to the incident. To build the timeline of incidents, the tier 2 analyst will actively investigate what a particular user on whom an alert is generated did over time. So they will ask probing questions such as, what did the user do yesterday? What did they do the day before? What did the user do last month? And how does all of that compare to the user's own baseline of expected behavior? How does it compare to the baseline of expected behavior for other users in the larger organization? How does it compare to other users in this user's own peer group? Let's take an example. Let's say that the user under investigation is an accountant from the accounting department. Now, it makes sense to compare this accountant's behavior with the behavior of other accountants in the accounting department, rather than comparing this user's behavior, this accountant's behavior, with users in the marketing department. Because accountants are supposed to behave in a similar fashion. And if there is a huge discrepancy between this accountant's behavior and the behavior of other accountants, then something probably strange is happening, and the tier 2 analyst needs to know about this. So this is what a peer group analysis will do for them, and it's going to be very, very critical. It's a fundamental capability to have in a SIEM solution. So anyways, as you can probably guess by now, at the level of the tier 2 analyst, the investigation needs to be quite deep. Once the tier 2 analysts complete their investigation, they can add the intelligence they gain and then send it over to the incident handler. So that's what I have on the slide there. The incident handler will then be responsible for taking actions to mitigate the threat, to respond to the threat. So the 3 roles that you see here, the tier 1 analyst, the tier 2 analyst, and the incident handler, these 3 roles are what you call the traditional roles within a security operations center. Pretty much every SOC has these roles. And then take a look at this. You also have some non-traditional roles within a SOC. Now, these roles are going to be very, very critical, very important in the years to come, in the months to come, especially now that many people are working from home. The threats have, just increased, skyrocketed. So it makes sense to make your security operations center next-gen security operations center, and you've got to have these roles as well. For example, you can have something called the threat hunting team within the SOC. This team takes the information available and performs hunting activities to look for unknown threats. This hunt team is not looking at correlation rules or alerts. Those are looked at by the tier 1 and tier 2 analysts, like we discussed before. But this hunt team, they look for threats that are not identified yet. For example, they can continuously look at third-party intelligence feeds and see how to use this information to secure the organization. The hunt teams in larger organizations also actively engage with experts on the latest threat intelligence to stay ahead of attackers. So they may liaise with threat intelligence providers on a real-time basis to be on top of the latest attacks. Now, apart from the threat hunting team, you can also have two other roles. You can have something called the insider threat team. And as the name suggests, the insider threat team will need to investigate any insider threat situation in the company. With the advent of remote work, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, many people are working remotely, obviously, and insider threats have become a huge problem. So it makes sense to have an insider threat team within the SOC. Now, the insider threat team cannot work in isolation. They'll have to work with the other members in the SOC team, and they also have to collaborate very closely with the human resources team. Because the human resources team will have a lot of non-technical indicators, and the insider threat team within the SOC will have a lot of technical indicators. The two need to be put together to come to a conclusion about any insider threat situation in the company. Then you can also have something called the red team within the SOC. The red team looks for vulnerabilities and loopholes in your security posture. They will actively conduct hacking tests and share the intelligence with the rest of the team. See, it's always better for a company to hack itself before somebody from the external world does it for them. When it's very bad if an attacker does it first. So it's always better if the organization hacks themselves first and find all of those vulnerabilities, and that's what a red team can do. A red team, for example, can send a fake phishing email to the entire organization and actively watch what users within the company actually click on that malicious link or malicious attachment within that email. And once that list of employees is there, they can then customize training for those employees. In the past, red teams are also known to have dropped USB sticks in the parking lot of the company, and they'll be having a close eye on what users actually pick up that USB stick and stick it into their computer and try to use that USB stick. And training can be customized for them as well. So that is the kind of role that the red team plays, a very critical role, very fundamental to the security operations center. And then you have this other point here, 24/7 operations. Now, obviously, your decision to do this depends on several factors, such as the nature of your business, the size of your business, and the sensitivity of the resources that you have on hand. But as we see the threat landscape evolving and the number of vulnerable endpoints also increasing, you may actually want to do this. You may want your SOC to operate round the clock to ensure that the business is never impacted. And this is only going to increase the resiliency of your SOC operations. Great. So having said this background, let's now see how technology can be used to enable a SOC. Numerous research reports say that attackers are lurking around in networks for months, moving laterally and gradually escalating privileges. Some studies put this number at as high as 200 days. 200 days, that is more than 6.5 months. Can you believe that? 6.5 months of an attacker lurking around in a network, and the company does not even know about it. Very bad state of affairs. So the technology you use should reduce the mean time to detect and the mean time to resolve security incidents, and thus create value for your business. Now, for this part of the presentation, I'll draw heavily from the example of Management Log 360, which is a comprehensive SIEM solution. And using a SIEM solution like Log 360 or any other effective SIEM solution, businesses can gain full control over their network and solve all of their log management and network security challenges. Anyways, the slide here shows you some of the major capabilities of an efficient SIEM like Log 360 that are aligned with the requirements of a security operations center. So here are some of the major capabilities that you want. You definitely want security analytics. That's a fundamental thing. That's basic. Threat intelligence is a fundamental thing as well. User and entity behavior analytics, or UEBA. This is where anomaly detection comes into play. Then you've got data security, cloud monitoring, compliance management. Then you've got incident response or incident detection and resolution. We'll now go over some of these capabilities that an efficient SOC needs to have in place. The first is the right technology to collect data. It's important to acquire, ingest, and make sense of data from different types of log sources. These would include security devices, network devices, applications, databases, employee workstations, file shares, cloud infrastructures, and so on. Other sources that need to be monitored are your mailboxes and monitoring activities that happen on the Exchange server. Yet another example of a log source is your Active Directory infrastructure. So in your SIEM solution, you need a device discovery capability that allows you to automatically discover all the devices on the network and start monitoring them in real time. So we'll see how device discovery works in an efficient SIEM solution. And I'm going to take the example of Log360. You can use any SIEM solution, but just make sure that you've got this capability on hand for you. So we'll see how device discovery works right now. I'm just going to jump into my console here. So this is the main console of Log360. And I'm going to jump into Event Log Analyzer, which is the log management module of Log360. And we're going to look at how device discovery works. So I'm going to navigate over to my settings tab. Let me quickly log back on as an administrator to demo this for you. So here we are in the settings tab of Event Log Analyzer module. And then let me go into manage devices. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an example of discovering network devices such as routers, switches, and firewalls, which use the syslog format. So I'm going to go into syslog devices here. And you can see that several devices are already added in for real-time monitoring. I'm just going to go into add devices because we want to discover new devices for monitoring. Here you can add devices the manual way by specifying the host with the commas. So you can do it this way, or you can do the more intelligent thing. You can discover and add over here. And then immediately you happen upon this pop-up where you can specify the IP range or the CIDR. It's completely up to you. And then let's say that you specify the IP range and then you hit next. And then you go through these steps and then you hit scan. Log360 is going to basically discover all the devices, all the syslog devices that fall within this specified IP range automatically. And once that's done, it's up to the security analyst to choose the devices that they want to configure for real-time monitoring. And once they do that, those devices are going to show up here in this list for real-time monitoring. So here you can see that the status says listening for logs. This basically means that real-time monitoring is enabled. You can also see success here. This pretty much means that it is on a schedule. So the security analyst has decided that real-time monitoring is not required for this particular device, and they have just scheduled the monitoring to happen at regular intervals. So that's what that means. Now, apart from your network devices, so we just looked at syslog devices. You can also add in your Windows devices and your other network devices for monitoring as well. Now, apart from all of these network devices, you can also configure application sources for monitoring. This would include your SQL servers, your web servers, your IIS servers, your Oracle databases, and such. You can also add your threat sources, such as your data loss prevention systems for monitoring. And you can also add your vulnerability scanners for monitoring. So all of this can be done in an efficient SIEM solution just on one console so that you're able to view everything on one console. Now, sometime back, I did say that it's also important for you to monitor devices which generate logs in very unique formats, right? Now, what we have discussed so far, these are all available out of the box in this SIEM solution, Log360. If you have devices that generate logs in unique formats, that is where you can use the custom log parser. You can go into import log data, and you can basically import all the logs in for monitoring. Just go into import logs, And you have several different ways in which you can import these logs. And at that point of time, once the logs are imported, it's just a matter of you teaching Log 360 or the SIEM solution that you use, what these logs actually mean, what these columns of these logs actually mean. And once you do that teaching one time, the solution is going to learn. And then after that one time, real-time security analytics are going to be available for you. So that is how the custom log parser is going to work in an efficient SIEM solution. Great. Let me just go back into the presentation now, because we are going to talk about threat intelligence, because threat intelligence is another major capability that you want within your SIEM solution. With threat intelligence, the SOC team can leverage known threat information to find potential vulnerabilities and take the required steps for mitigation. They can check for malicious IPs, URLs, and domains. So we'll just see how threat intelligence actually works in an efficient SIEM solution. So let me go back into the event log analyzer module, the log management module of Log 360, and going back into the settings tab. And then here I have threat management. So let me go into threat management. And this right here, what you see in front of you is the interface for managing threat intelligence feeds. So here on this page, you have the sticks and taxi-based threat feeds. Now, Log 360 gives out-of-the-box integration with the global threat database. And this is the default server that you see over here. So that is the automatic, that is something that is actually available out of the box in Log 360. It is available in the base subscription of Log 360. Now, as a security analyst, you can also add your own threat feeds, which is going to be a very, very critical capability by just going into add new server and then specifying all of this information here. By specifying all of this information, you will be able to connect to new threat feeds, your own custom threat feeds that you have subscribed to, and bring in all of that information within Log 360 as well. Now, as a SIEM provider, what we usually tell our customers is at least subscribe to 3 threat feeds. One threat feed is never going to be enough. The threat, every threat feed is going to have their own strengths. So what strength one threat feed has, the other threat feed may not have. So the rule of thumb usually is to go with at least 3 different threat feeds so that you get comprehensive information when it comes to threat intelligence. That's going to be very, very critical. So once you get all of this information in, once you get all of this configured, all of your threat feeds configured, you can also make use of Log 360's advanced threat analytics. This is nothing but our integration with Webroot's Bright Cloud Threat Intelligence, which is going to give you more sophisticated threat intelligence. So here is the interface for doing that. All that you need to do here is enable it over here, and then Log 360 is going to connect to this threat feed and bring all of that intelligence in as well. So now you may have a question in your mind, how this is going to help you. So I'm just going to show you how this is going to be very, very beneficial. If you navigate over to the reports section, which is where you find all your security analytics, use the drop down here, and let's go into threats, and then go into threat analytics. Now take a look at this. Take a look at this information over here. This is going to give you a lot of granular information about the top attacked hosts, for example. So take a look at these columns, which is going to give you a lot of information. It tells you the time at which the threat was directed. It also tells you the source IP address, or the IP address where the threat is emanating from. What was the actual attack host and its IP address? And from the looks of it, it seems like there is one particular server which probably hosts a lot of business critical information that's constantly under attack. So you've got to be very, very concerned as a security analyst about such a situation. You also get to see the threat category, and you get to see something called the reputation score. Now, the reputation score can range anywhere from 1 to 100 and can be classified as trustworthy, low risk, moderate risk, suspicious, and high risk. The lower the reputation score, the higher the risk that these IPs will deliver attacks, such as malicious payloads and denial of service attacks to the network. The SOC team can also get more granular information on each of these malicious sources by going into view and getting to see exactly the geo information about these threats. Now, many of you might have heard of something called the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Now, the geo information that a threat intelligence feed gives you can be used in tandem with something called the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which identifies specific threat groups that are active around the world. And putting the two together, you can be, you can get to know if you have to be concerned about any particular threat group from around the world that is targeting your organization. So the MITRE ATT&CK framework is something that can also be, a fundamental capability to have nowadays. A lot of companies are using this this framework to safeguard against attacks. So let's go into the presentation now and look at the next capability that we want within a SOC, and that is advanced event correlation. Because getting all the data to one place, that's very, very good. That's obviously good. But on top of this data, you need to perform advanced event correlation to detect both known and unknown types of attacks. This is the stage of ingesting the data. So you absolutely need predefined correlation rules which solve specific challenges and use cases. With these correlation rules, you can look for things like suspicious software installations, ransomware attacks, cryptojacking, worm activity, and so much more. A SOC analyst should be able to drill down to any point in the incident timeline to view exactly what took place, where it took place, who did an action, and at what time the action was done. Apart from predefined rules, you also need an option to build custom correlation rules. After all, every company is unique, and their security challenges can also be unique. So let's take a look at correlation analysis in Log 360 in just a moment. Now, before we do that, just take a look at this. So when it comes to correlation analysis, we are not looking at action 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 in isolation. Each of these considered in isolation may or may not be malicious. But then when you look at a sequence, right, when you look at action 1 followed quickly by action 2, then by action 3, and then by action 4, now that could be very, very telling. That could be a very strange sequence of action. And in fact, that could be a cyber attack that you need to be very, very concerned about. And that's what correlation rules aim to solve for us. That's a challenge that we can solve. So yes, we'll see how correlation analysis works in a SIEM solution like Log 360 just now. So let me go back into the console, and I need to go into the correlation tab to look for these correlation analytics. Now, on the left are all the different categories of analytics we have. And let's take a very, very simple example of a brute force attack. So here are some of the brute force attacks, potential brute force attacks that Log 360 has detected for us using correlation rules. And as a security analyst, if you go into the event timeline, you'll be able to see exactly the sequence of events that led to this being detected as a potential brute force attack. Yes, so it all seems like it began on this date at this particular time when an account failed to log onto a device in the network. And in a few quick seconds, multiple actions were done. And take a look at this. At this time, just a few seconds later, an account successfully logged onto a device in the network. So this is why this is being detected as a possible brute force attack. Now, this is a very, very simple example. There are more sophisticated use cases as well. For example, you can also detect ransomware attacks. And in the last 12 months, there was a new ransomware strain called the coronavirus ransomware strain. And many, many big organizations fell victim to this. So as a company, we try to update ourselves with these built-in correlation rules. And we have built in a correlation rule for the coronavirus ransomware detection as well. So this is also a part of correlation rules that we have built into the product. So likewise, you have correlation rules for things like cryptocurrency, database threats, web server threats, and so on and so forth. Right? So anyways, these are all built-in correlation rules. Now, I did tell you that it's important to have custom correlation rules as well. So we'll see how that works right now. From here, if you go into manage rules, you'll see the custom correlation rules that are built in or that are configured already rather. And then you can create your own custom correlation rule by going in over here. And now let's take an example, right? Let's take an example where there's a successful Windows logon from a remote IP address that's malicious as detected by our threat intelligence module. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say that there is a Windows logon, and it's a successful Windows logon. So we are building action 1 right now. And the logon type is, it's happening from a remote IP address. So let's go ahead and choose that. And not only is it any remote IP address, this has been deemed to be malicious by our threat intelligence module. So a lot of things are happening in action 1 already, right? So let's say that this is quickly followed within 2 minutes by the start of a new process, so which is taking place in another part of the network. So let's build that as action 2. So you can see that here. So that is action number 2. And then let's say this is quickly followed by action number 3, where let's say that a file modification takes place. So this is happening in a different part of the network. A file is being modified, and that is action 3. Now, this train sequence of events, right? This could be nothing but an IT sabotage. And that is something that you may be concerned about. So you need to create that as a correlation rule by hitting create. And once you hit create, this will get created as a correlation rule here. From here, you just need to activate it. You can go here and activate this particular rule that you've created. And then if you check off this box, it will also reach you as an alert whenever those conditions are satisfied. And from the alerts tab, what happens is you can configure a workflow so that you can respond to that particular alert immediately. So you're not waiting for the alert. You can actually take some mitigation actions immediately. So that's how things like threat intelligence, correlation, alerting, and also response workflows can all work in tandem in an effective SIEM solution. It's a very, very fundamental capability to have. The next thing that we need to talk about is forensic analysis. Now, obviously, the best thing to do is stop attacks before they take place. But if an attacker somehow gets in and is lurking around the network, log forensics becomes very, very critical. You need a click-based elastic search engine with which you can analyze complex incidents, gather evidence, and discover the root cause. How this works is you can use search queries to look for threat information and check for compromised systems or entities. You can then keep drilling down into the data until you find what you're looking for. The SOC team can piece together what really happened by gathering all of this evidence from across the network. So we'll see how log forensics or forensic analysis works in an effective SIEM solution just now. So here's that. We are back into the event log analyzer console, the log management console here. And to do a forensic analysis, we need to go into the search tab. And I'm going to do a few interesting things right now. So just watch closely. I'm just going to hit the search button here. And Log360 is going to analyze events at a rate of 25,000 logs per second and give us a view of all the logs that are there in the, in the network at that point of time for this specified time range that you see here. So we have close to 72,000 logs here that we are looking at. And this is not humanly possible to analyze, right? This is just way too much. So we have to keep drilling down. Let's do a few drill downs here. Let's say that the security analyst is only interested in the Windows logs. So let's use the drop down and choose Windows and then hit the search button. And we're going to get a more refined list. So we are down to about 5,600 logs now, right? And from here, let's say that we are looking for only those logs where the source is equal to this value, Microsoft Windows Security Auditing. So here's where I'm going to use the Elasticsearch capability. And I'm going to just click on this value here. And it is going to give us a more refined list. You can also see that it is updating the query builder. So we could have done this in the manual way where we, we key this in and then hit search. We have just used the more automatic way, the more faster way of doing things. And then from here, let's say that we are interested in particular users. So let's see if there is the, so there we go. Let's take a look at the user field. So here we go. take a look at this. I'm going to use the Elastic search feature once again. I'm just going to click on username, and then you'll be able to see in descending order all the users who are associated with this source. Let's say that Scott is the user that is under investigation. Just click on Scott. This is going to update the query builder. And we are down to about 751 logs right now. Now, let's say that we are interested in particular processes that Scott has run. So let's see if we can do that. So let's say if there is any process name, there we go. So these are all the processes that are associated with the user called Scott. And just for the sake of this example, assume that this is a malicious process. So you click on that, it updates the query builder, and you are down to that log. So this is how a forensic analysis actually works. This is how you can actually keep drilling down using the Elasticsearch feature and get to the bottom, get to the root of any problem. Very, very critical capability to have. Forensic analysis is very, very critical. So let's go back into the presentation now. The other highlight capability of a next-gen SOC is machine learning-based analytics. This is meant to complement the threat detection capability of a security operations center. This is a holistic approach to visualize and mitigate threats by profiling and baselining the expected behavior of all the users and systems in a network. A good anomaly detection platform takes about 2 weeks to learn what's normal and what's not normal in a network on a typical day. Things it learns about comprise of what's a normal number of logons per day for a user, what servers or databases does a user typically use, and what times do they access the particular server, and so on. Now, anomalies can be based on 3 things. They can be based on time, pattern, or count. And depending on what's observed for each user or system, a risk score is given. The risk score is an indication of the degree of risk posed by that entity. The security analyst can then add these users and entities to a watch list to secure their organization in a more effective way. So we'll see how anomaly detection works right now. So here is Log360 UEBA. This is the anomaly detection module of Log360. And like I said, we have time, count, and pattern anomalies. Let's take a look at time anomalies first. Just going over to the anomaly reports tab here. And we'll be looking at log-on time anomalies. So I've just chosen this filter here, time-based. And we're going to be looking at users. Now take a look at this. Now take a look at this, row right here of this report. So here you're looking for strange behavior, such as a user logging on at a time that falls out of their expected range. For example, what's expected from UEBA user 1 is a log on between 4 and 4:15 a.m. That is expected. But what are they actually doing? They are exhibiting some strange behavior. They have logged on at 4:15 p.m. and that is being tracked as an anomaly by Log360. So what is this user really up to? And then you can have count anomalies. So let's take a look at count anomalies right now. And we'll be looking at strange software installations. So I'm just going to use this filtration here, count-based anomalies. The criteria is going to be set to users. Let's just scroll down to take a look at this example here. Here you're asking the question, are software and services being installed on particular hosts way too many times? So here you have this particular software from this vendor being installed on this host by this user at this particular time, right? And how many times did this happen? Well, it happened 250 times. What is expected is 7. What is happening is 250. It's a huge count anomaly, and this is being tracked. This is being tracked as a strange behavior. So is this particular user, UEB user 1, are they up to something? Is this an insider attack taking place right in front of our eyes? That is something that you need to confirm as a security analyst. The third type of anomaly is the pattern anomaly, and we'll be taking a look at that example right now. So let's do that. So here you have pattern based. Let me just scroll down. So here you have this particular software from this vendor installed on this host by this user, right, at this time. Now, the pattern that is under analysis is this right here: host name, username, and time. Now, while this part of the pattern, that is host name, username part of the pattern, seems to be absolutely fine, the time part of the pattern seems to be an anomaly. It's throwing some, it's a strange behavior. This particular user does not work on that host during these time buckets. What's expected is activity between these time buckets, but what is happening is an activity between 7 and 8 p.m. In fact, it's happening at 7:07 p.m. and that is being tracked as a pattern anomaly. And that is something that a security analyst needs to be concerned about. So based on all of these anomalies, the user's or entity's risk score will be adjusted accordingly. The anomaly detection capability of Log360 can look at strange behavior across your network devices, including Windows, Unix, and Cisco routers. It can look for anomalies in applications also, such as your Active Directory infrastructure. It can also look for anomalies across your firewall devices. These are some of the firewall devices that it can analyze anomalies for. It can also look at anomalies for your cloud services. Very, very important capability to have nowadays. Your AWS, Azure, and Google. So all of these are fundamental capabilities to have. Now, one of the most important things when it comes to anomaly detection is the ability to build a timeline of incidents and understand the complete context of a potential threat. And you can do exactly this with Log360. So I'll show you the dashboard right now. Let me go into the user's dashboard. Now take a look at this. Here you have this particular user called user 1. They have the highest risk score. They are the riskiest user. They have a risk score of 56 in the entire network, right? So let's just click on user 1. And if you scroll down, you get to see all the anomalous activities that this user has performed over time. So it seems like it all started on this particular date at this time when they had multiple successful logon attempts, 102 attempts versus what is expected is just 14. This was quickly followed by multiple file permission changes. Very, very strange, isn't it? 102 versus 14. Multiple system files were then changed, 102 versus 14. And if you were not convinced earlier, just take a look at this. Multiple files were then modified by the user. 204 files and folders were modified by the user when what is expected from them is just 28. You can then deep dive by going in over here, going into event details and seeing all of those 204 files and folders that this potential insider attack or rogue insider, user 1, had their eyes on. From here, you get this empowering information, and then as a security analyst, you can take the required action. If you go up top over here, you also get to see the risk score associated with user 1 for insider threats, data exfiltration, compromised accounts, and logon anomalies. And they seem to be a likely candidate when it comes to insider threats and compromised accounts. So anomaly detection is going to be a very, very critical capability to have within your SIEM solution. The next thing we need to discuss is cloud monitoring. The cloud has been adopted by most companies around the world now. In 2015, just about 5-6 years back, the statistics say that about 69% of organizations had some form of cloud infrastructure. Today in 2021, that figure actually stands at 94%. Can you believe it? 94%. And close to 50% of companies do store their business critical data on the cloud. So the point is, it's critical for companies to monitor the safety and security of the data they store in the cloud. Organizations need to have complete visibility into all the activities that take place in the cloud, even if they have a multi-cloud deployment. The SIEM solution you use must enable you to track things like failed activities by users and top modified services. You should be able to track important activities happening on your AWS, Azure, Salesforce, and Google. So let me quickly show you how this works in Log360. And here I have the Cloud Security Plus module of Log360 open. Just take a look at this. This is the main dashboard, which is going to give you information about top error events, the Azure most modified resource groups, activities by users. So in case there is something strange happening, in case something sticks out, you get to see that this is happening in your cloud infrastructure. You also get to see the top modified services, right? This is very, very important to monitor. When you go into the reports, you get to see more empowering information. Let me quickly log back in. I seem to have lost connection here. So you get to see things like what is happening on your EC2 instances, for example. Let me go into my the reports. So your S3 bucket activity reports and all of that. You get to see all of that, right? Your EC2 reports. Likewise, you also get reports for your Azure infrastructure, your Salesforce, and your Google as well, right? All of this is going to be very, very critical to to monitor, because of the shared responsibility model when it comes to cloud deployments. Security is going to be shared between the cloud service provider and the organization themselves. But it is always going to be beneficial for the organization to monitor the activity that happens at the data level. So they need to monitor things of this sort. Very, very critical capability to have. You need to monitor your cloud infrastructure at all times. So yes, you've got to have your reports in place and you've got to monitor your cloud in real time. So now that we are almost at the end of the webinar, what I would like to do is I would like to share a few resources with you. The first is an ebook on the ABCs of DNS, DHCP, and IPAM security. A lot of ransomware attacks have been happening. A lot of DDoS attacks have been happening of late. And believe it or not, the DNS and DHCP are some of the weakest links. And we have a resource for you that can explain to you how security for your DNS, DHCP, and IPAM can work. So let me quickly share this for you. I'm going to copy paste this on the chat, and you can access this whenever time permits. So there you go. You've got to have that URL with you now. So you can access this resource whenever time permits. I think it's a pretty valuable resource. And I would also like to share a YouTube video with you, which is going to be very, very interesting. It is about the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So let me quickly share that also with you right now. So there you go. You've got to see that in front of you now. You can access this whenever time permits as well. Great. So now that we have seen all of this, right, let's talk about what you need to monitor in terms of metrics, right? Because to monitor the efficiency of your SOC, you've got to have a few, you've got to look at a few key performance indicators. That's going to be very, very critical. Some of the main things that you need to look at are your mean time to resolve, or your MTTR. You've got to look at how long does it take for the SOC to resolve an incident. But you need to make sure that your team is actively doing the right work to resolve incidents and not just closing incidents. So MTTR, that is the main thing. That's the first thing that you need to look at. Then you need to look at the number of incidents handled. Again, it's a good metric to see, but it only tells you how busy your security operations center is. For example, let's say that a SOC handles 250 incidents in a month, which happens to be a 30% increase over the previous month. Is that a good thing? Well, it could be a good thing, but it may not be. But that's a good metric to track. Then you've got to look at the number of alerts. This again is tied to the number of incidents. But when it comes to a next-gen SOC, you've got to look at a few more involved metrics as well. For example, you've got to look at things like the percentage of traffic visible. Of all the log sources in the environment, how much percentage does the SOC have full visibility over? That is a very, very important metric to have. For example, is your SOC tracking all the activities that is happening on the cloud infrastructure? Then the next metric, a very good metric that you need to look at, is the feature use percentage. The SOC should ask itself if it's making use of all the great features of a SIEM solution that it has implemented. Is it making use of all the technology at its disposal to harden security? And if so, what's the percentage? So that's the feature use percentage. The third metric, a third very, very good metric to look at, is the attack handling confidence. Is the SOC confident about the way it detects, handles, and resolves incidents? If so, what is the confidence level? Then you've got to look at the number of events per analyst hour. On average, how many events do SOC analysts handle per hour? Anything more than 10 or 11 could mean that your SOC analysts are overwhelmed, and it could be a human resources problem. So those are the metrics that you need to look at. Great. So that almost brings us to the end of the webinar today. But I do have a couple of polls to run. So let me quickly launch this poll. So people on Zoom can see this poll immediately, and people on LinkedIn Live will also have access to this poll. So if you can take a few moments to fill out this survey for us, that would be really, really great. And as you're answering that, let me take your attention to this slide. We have another webinar scheduled in just a month's time. In fact, it is happening on September 30th. And this is going to be on the fundamentals of cloud security. So this is again going to be streamed live on Zoom and also on LinkedIn Live. So let me just copy paste this on chat so that you could, if you're interested, register for this as well. So I'm just pasting the URL that you can register on. This is on our own website. This is on the managing website. And I do have the other link as well. So let me quickly share that also. This is going to be for LinkedIn Live. So there you go. So thank you all. I see that many of you have asked questions. So I'll still be online for some time, taking all of these questions, either over chat or live over this session. So I'll be taking a few questions now. And many of you might have already have your questions answered because we did have live chat support throughout the entire webinar. Okay, so there is a question from Mahesh, and he asks how cyber threat intelligence can help. Well, cyber threat intelligence is definitely going to help because a lot of the work is already done for you. There are a lot of companies that actively follow what's happening in the real world when it comes to cyber attacks, and they have a sense of what is happening, right, when it comes to cyber attackers and then on the newest sophisticated attack methods that they are using. So all of that information is available. And Log 360 basically connects to that database of threat intelligence and brings all of that information in. For example, a very, very simple example, it can bring in all the information about the malicious IP addresses. It brings it in, and as a SIEM solution, it will alert you whenever those IP addresses are detected within the network. And you can also take action from there. You can actually block all of those malicious IP traffic. Yes, there is a question from Paul Ward, and he asked, do you have this as an on-premises services? Yes, Log 360 is available as primarily an on-premises installation. It is also available on the cloud as Log 360 Cloud. So, and Log 360 Cloud is also going to have feature parity. So all the features that you would find on Log 360 on-premises would also sooner or later, and I would say more sooner than later, be available on the cloud as well. So thanks a lot for that question, Paul. Okay, there is another question here by Ravi Kiran. Any product to monitor dark web? Great question, Ravi. The dark web needs to be monitored. And like I said, cyber attackers are getting more and more sophisticated every day. As of now, no, we do not have that capability, but that is something that we are very, very vigilantly looking at. That's a capability that we want to build within Log 360. That's definitely in our roadmap. We have identified that. Not just you, a lot of customers are asking us for that feature, and a lot of industry analysts and experts are also speaking about it. Okay, there is a question by Mahesh, and he asks, in this product, in Log 360, can we get cyber incident response plan? Yes, Mahesh, you can. So incident response is also very, very critical because you don't want to be just getting to know about an attack that has happened and then waiting on it. You've got to be able to take that response right there and there, right? As soon as an alert is raised, you've got to be able to respond. And that is where playbooks and workflows come into the picture. So let's say that an alert is being raised, right? You can actually configure a workflow such that whenever those conditions are satisfied, that workflow gets set into motion. So as soon as those conditions are satisfied, let's say that you've configured a workflow called workflow A that gets set out. So you can actually do things such as log off a particular user or disable a user or shut down a machine. You can do things of that sort. Or you can also run a batch script and take actions at the firewall level. You can do all of those things as response actions. Workflows and playbooks are very, very critical. Yes. And in fact, yeah, one of our colleagues, Ranjit, has put out some documentation on incident management. So you can take a look at that. Thank you so much, Jacob. Thanks a lot. You too have a great day. Paul Ward asks, is the cloud version FedRAMP approved, required for CMMC NIST I will have to check and get back to you on this, Paul. I'll have to get back to you on that. Okay, everyone, thanks a lot for this. It's been a great pleasure for me to prepare for this webinar and also present it to you. I hope you took some valuable and useful information out of this. You've been a lovely audience, some great questions today. In case there were a few questions I couldn't answer today, we'll definitely be getting back to you over email. So until next time, please take care. Like I said, on September 30th, we have the next webinar. I've shared those links with you. It would be really, really great if you could register for that webinar. That webinar is going to be on cloud security. Thank you so very much. Have a great day. Bye for now.